Welcome to episode 177 of the Daniel Yoris podcast with today's guest, Kirby Martin. Let's go. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. Pleasure to be joined here today by Kirby Martin. Kirby owns a CrossFit gym out in Elmira, Ontario, which is a big town. I'm sure that everyone here knows of Elmira, Ontario. But Kirby is the first official CrossFit gym owner on the gym. I spent enough time making fun of CrossFit, but I do think it is an amazing thing. Anyways, Kirby, thanks for being here, man.
Hey, it is a pleasure to be here and a pleasure to be the first CrossFit affiliate owner on the podcast. So this is great. Appreciate it.
Kirby and I met through our mutual friend, Tanner Shuck, who's been on the podcast before. You should, if you're listening, you should remember him. But yeah, man, we got to hang out and work out, and that was great. And we were having so much good conversation right before the recording started. And so hopefully we continue that here. But before that, can you introduce yourself and tell people who you are and what it is that you do, and just a little about yourself?
Absolutely. I am, like Daniel said, I am Kirby. I own a CrossFit gym in the beautiful town of Elmira. Name is CrossFit Elmira. I've been coaching and working in fitness for a decade now. I actually started doing CrossFit in the Philippines when my wife and I were living there. And very shortly after starting it, I got into coaching CrossFit and fell in love with, being a coach and being able to work in fitness, work with people, see positive change in people's lives. It was, super, super motivating and exciting to wake up in the morning, excited about a job you give a shit about. So that was truly life-changing for me. And then lived there in the Philippines doing CrossFit for about a year and a half. And then from there moved back home to Elmira, where my wife and I, Siobhan, started CrossFit Elmira, and we started it on a shoestring budget and just kind of, trained people and worked out ourselves and kept moving, made a lot of mistakes, learned a lot of lessons, kept grinding. And at the point now we have got a thriving CrossFit gym in our hometown, providing fitness and helping people get better. So still loving what I do every day, helping people, making people better. And yeah, super honored to be here and chat health and fitness with a fellow fitness professional.
Correct me if I'm wrong here, but your introduction to fitness, just in general, was in the Philippines about 10-ish years ago. So your first intro to fitness was through CrossFit. Is that right?
Absolutely. So I had done some fitness in the past. I tried going to a regular gym, doing some, just didn't know what I was doing. Didn't have a coach, didn't have a great, onboard. So I'm standing there in front of the mirror doing bicep curls, wondering when I'm going to be jacked. Didn't happen. Went for a couple did some running here and there. Hate running, bored out of my mind doing it. Probably ran way too far when I tried to go running and just hated it and wouldn't do it again. So very limited exposure to fitness. And then actually when we were living in the Philippines, my wife met some friends that were going to a CrossFit gym. And if you know anyone that does CrossFit, it's the first thing they tell you about themselves. So these friends of hers, told her to come try a workout. So she jumped in, did the workout, and kind of the time in her life too. So one thing that CrossFit does really well is the community aspect of fitness. You're a bunch of people going through suffering together, and there's something so powerful about suffering together, and it just draws people together. And it's kind of the phase of life we were in as well. Living in the Philippines, away from home, didn't have much of a social circle. So instantly you're plugged into a group of people that are, high on endorphins, feeling great about life. And it was a great way for us to start meeting people. And so, so Siobhan did the workout, fell in love with it, started doing it. And then she, told me to get my lazy ass into the gym and give this thing a try. And then did a trial workout, was like, this feels insane. What the hell is this? And I think it was the next week when I was at the gym, completely random. Tanner Shuck happened to pass through Manila at the time. He was there visiting his dad. And I walked into the gym and saw this guy, didn't know at the time, but like a, college football player, super jacked, throwing barbells around. I'm like, yeah, I need to do that. That's really cool. And and then it turns out he ended up staying in the Philippines. He was coaching for a while. He lived 2 apartments down from us in our condo complex. So it was, about a year's time where our lives were just overlapped, and being able to have that kind of a mentor in fitness and completely new to fitness. So just jumped into the training, didn't really know what I was doing. Apparently it was CrossFit. It was weightlifting, it was football training. I don't know what the hell it was. It was just like strength and conditioning, pushing motorcycles up hills, hill sprints in the humidity of the Philippines. And it was a very intense first. It's not how I would choose to onboard a client myself as a coach, knowing what I know now, but it's all that I knew at the time. And damn, it was an effective kind of onboarding into that. And it was through that where I just fell in love with for a long time, I hated fitness. Like even then doing it, it was uncomfortable. It's like, damn, I worked my ass off yesterday. I got to do it again today. Like, isn't that good enough? Like, I already did this week. And it's like, for me, it took a long time to kind of fight through that discomfort to get to the point where it's like, all of a sudden when I started seeing like my mental toughness shooting through the roof, like I was okay with difficult situations, and living in a foreign country away from everything you know and understand it's very stressful. And for me, suddenly just like having more patience in tough situations, having better mental clarity, and seeing all of these things as a positive byproduct of fitness. And it was just so addictive and contagious to see how much my life was improving, not in what I would typically expect from being part of a gym. And so that was really inspiring for me to start pushing further into fitness and to really bite into it and to start wanting to go to the gym and want to do workouts. And then the lagging measure, the thing you think you're training for is, performance, body composition, strength. Then all of a sudden that shit starts showing up as well on top of, having all this positivity going on in your life. It was just something I was hooked on instantly. And then also I had in need of if I was going to move back home, I was in need of a career, and I was an auto mechanic I was working as an auto mechanic before my wife and I moved to the Philippines, and I knew I didn't want to get back into doing that. And I was like, man, let's try this fitness thing. So I just started training some people, and yeah, it's funny. Maybe, I don't know if you could relate to this or not, but when you get your first journey in fitness, you think back to how you trained some of your first clients.
Oh, that's right.
All I want to do is go back and give them their money back. Like, I'm so sorry. I'm certainly not an expert at this point, but I have gotten a lot better in the last 10 years at training people. And for myself, I will forever be grateful for the country of the Philippines for, absolutely changing my life and giving me the opportunity to get into fitness and start training people when I had minimal experience. And that's being generous. And
yeah.
So
no, I
anyway,
think
kind of a random
good trainer
fitness, but yeah.
Yeah, I think any good trainer would say that like the beginning sucked. And like to some degree, even, 2 years ago, I sucked. And then, 2 years from now, I'll say that now I sucked. And like, you're always kind of getting better. And I think the second you stop getting better is, you're done at that point. But just one thing that I want to talk about and want to really highlight here is this community aspect of CrossFit. I mean, CrossFit is it's like the friend that everyone likes to pick on, but we still like them kind of thing, like we still like you, but we pick on you, but but
That's funny.
The community part is something that no one can deny. I don't think anyone does it better than CrossFit. I don't think any of these other like group fitness type gyms do it the way CrossFit does. And I think that all of these group fitness things are just like amateur CrossFit anyways, because it's like, what are you doing? But that part is so important especially for adults where you move to a new city. It's tough to make friends as an adult because you're not thrust into like a school group where you're just like, oh, these are your friends now, like, run along. So how has it been for you witnessing the community aspect within your community? Because Elmira is a beautiful town, but it is a small town. It's not like there's not millions of people there. And so having these people come together under one roof to sweat and kind of go through this and build a different type of bond versus just being neighbors or friends in the community. Like, what has that been like for you bringing this gift back from the Philippines?
It's been super special. And what's been really interesting, so when we first came back, my first few clients, the one was my ex-boss, when I worked as an auto mechanic, was him. And he was like super influential in getting the gym started. I actually was going to go back and work for him. And I had a job lined up moving back home. And, he was like, yeah, I'll give you a job again, get your feet underneath you again back home. Like maybe a month before we moved back, he's like, actually, I don't want to hire you. I'll hire your wife instead. We'll hire Siobhan. And I think you should go start a gym, because if I give you a job, you're going to get too comfortable and you'll never do it. So he's like, go start a gym. So he was like the first client. So basically moved back and we just started doing kettlebell swings in his auto shop. And we just started doing some fitness. He had like a drive-on hoist that would lift up, and we'd just do like jumps up onto the hoist and just whatever we could do to get things started. So he was super influential. So it started out with him, my parents, my grandfather actually as well, not into fitness at all, very unhealthy, was like, hey, I don't want to do this at all, but I see what you're trying to do. I'm going to pay you for personal training until you have enough other people that'll pay you that I don't have to do this anymore. So he helped me out. So those very early days, it's basically just family and really close friends that want the absolute best for you. And what's interesting is 10 years later, that's still the same thing. It's just grown to more people. Maybe we're not, Elmira, a lot of people are related because of just how small of a town it is. And everyone's gone to high school together and everything. So that it's a small town, but that same bond we had with a handful of members is still what we have today as we continue to grow. And I think you mentioned I think, and I've said this before, is like the community aspect of CrossFit. If you ever want to go to a city and find a bunch of really great people, go to a CrossFit gym, because there's something about being willing to suffer together. It removes all ego, because the crazy thing with CrossFit is nobody's good at it. It's impossible to be good at it because there's such a variety of movements. If you're tall, you're going to be amazing at some things. You're going to suck at other things. If you're short, same thing. If you're weightlifting based, you're going to be amazing, but there's another day you're going to suck. So there's no way the same person ever is the best person in every class. It doesn't happen. So you have to have an element of humility. And along with that humility, you've got to be willing to fail in front of other people. Because if the day all of a sudden calls for a movement you're just not good at, or you're missing some mobility, and all of a sudden you have to take it down to a body weight lunge when the 45-year-old lady beside you is busting out back rack lunges with 95 pounds and you're using an empty bar. It's like, if you can't handle that and don't understand that this is where you're at currently and you're okay with that, you're just not going to last in that environment. So when you get a group of people who are all willing to kind of own their own shit and work towards their own improvements, it is we've just been fortunate to have, we literally have no jackasses in our community. It's pretty special because of that. And I do also know that CrossFit is such a broad term and there's so many different types of gyms. And one of the beautiful things of CrossFit is you can run your gym any way you want. There's really no guidelines on how you do it, which creates unique communities, but it also can, not all of them are the same. So if someone's had a bad experience at one gym, there's, unfortunately, they kind of taints the reputation for all CrossFit gyms, but there is a lot of gyms out there that are doing it really, really well. Unfortunately, there's some that don't necessarily have that same culture and community.
So this is actually a good topic, and I think it's very helpful for people. Is what are some things to look for in a CrossFit gym or in a group fitness gym? Because I think the dynamic is the same as the way the class is run, as far as here are the movements that we're doing today, here's the workout. What are some things to look for as this place is good and I should be here versus this place is they're missing something here?
How clean are the washrooms? Honestly, it sounds really silly, but if the owner of the gym can take care of the simple things, they're taking care of the important things as well. And the simple things are, first of all, do they work out? Are they living the lifestyle that they're trying to promote and sell? So that's important. Then is the facility clean? Does it look like they're running a business? Are they checking the boxes on some of those business things? And for me, clean washrooms. Don't screw that up. Anybody can scrub a toilet. And if they're missing that and they're more concerned about their own training, or they're more concerned about, all the wide variety of equipment they have in different things, they're also going to be missing it when it comes to watching somebody air squat, and it's too much work to go over there and correct their knees falling in. Shit, let's just let them keep going. They're almost done the workout. And it's just that if you're not sharp on the small things, you're going to be missing some of those big things. And that, unfortunately, and that's not CrossFit. That's just business in general. Yeah. Making sure those small things are being done well will definitely speak to them paying attention to programming, paying attention to clients. Another huge one is if you're in a CrossFit gym that has members that are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, you're in a good spot, because nobody in their 40s, 50s, and 60s can be continuing to do group fitness style weightlifting, conditioning, gymnastics type programs unless the programming's good. If the entire gym is full of 20-year-olds, you're probably in a fire breather environment where, people are going to look back and say, that was crazy. I was super fit, but now everything hurts. Right. So yeah, that would be, that's probably a bigger one, is what's the age group of the people that are training there? And then, if you can get to the point of actually knowing some people, how long have the people been with you? And in a small market like Elmira, we don't have the luxury of having 50 leads per month of people coming in inquiring about this. The town, the entire, like our population, it's growing. We have like 15,000 people, and our closest neighboring towns are like 15 minutes away. So if we don't have members that are staying with us for 5 years, we're in a problem. We're never going to grow. We're never going to get to the point where we need to be if we're having people last for 2 months and take off. So if you find a gym and you find a large amount of the membership base that's been around for 3, 4, 5 years, you're also in a good spot.
Yeah. I think the thing about, I think you said a lot of good things there. You kind of stunned me with the washroom, but it makes a ton of sense. One thing I want to zoom in on here is that the person or the owners or the staff, whoever works there, is living the lifestyle that they are trying to sell, doing the right work, doing the workouts that they're giving you. Like I see some people who run, various group fitness gyms, and like they don't do their own workouts. Yeah. And so you're trying to, use yourself as a way to sell this thing. Look at what I do. It works, it all this stuff, but you don't even do the thing that you say you do. Yeah. Like an example I have of this is my fiance goes to gym, and sometimes she takes some classes and stuff at the gym. And there was one where she did it was like a Zumba dance class of some sort. And she's like, I don't want to be mean. She's only talking to me, but she's like, I don't want to be mean, but like the instructor was like kind of like not in good shape, and like no one in the class is like in good shape, and like everybody was really nice, but like it makes me feel like if I do that, I'm going to be like them, and I don't want to be like that. And I was like, okay, that's pretty legit. Like obviously if what they're doing, if they claim what they do works, then they're wrong. Yeah. Because obviously just visually and you can see them in their performance, it's not working. So that's a huge one. Just kind of like walking the walk and being legit. And it's hard to so I think it's harder to hide from that in CrossFit than most other or any other of the group things, because like it's so diverse in the things that you do. So yeah, maybe you're not great at gymnastics, but you're really good at weightlifting, you're really good at conditioning or whatever else it is.
And people that do CrossFit are super passionate about we love lifting weights, we love being uncomfortable, we love doing these different things. So naturally there's like, at least from my experience, there's an authenticity. The person leading the class, first of all, you don't make enough money. Like if you want to make money, don't open a CrossFit gym. If you want to be rich, there's other ways to get there much faster. Yeah. So your motivation for being there, running the class, for being there for most people is a genuine care for other people or a sincere fire and passion for what you're providing. Like, so many of us believe like fitness is truly the medicine for population around us. And if that's a fire inside you and that's what's drawing you into doing this, you're naturally going to be leading by example. But I couldn't agree more. If you're at a fitness facility and nobody there is leading by example, and there's Burger King bags in the trash buckets and stuff like that, man, over the years, people coming in and bringing like fast food bags and putting in the garbage, like the younger version of me, an earlier generation coach, I'd walk around and be like, okay, who put the McDonald's, like who's doing this? Until they found out it was funny to do this and really get my blood pressure rising. And yeah, but leading by example, that's business. Again, that's not just cross or fitness specific. That's like, got to lead by example if you're going to build a following. And with fitness, it's kind of, you can't really fake it. Like you've either got it and you're fit and you're living the lifestyle, or you're not. Yeah.
Now, very practically speaking, cardio is a good mix of like a phrase or a term that's come about now that's a little bit popular is this hybrid training, which to me is just fitness or hybrid athletism. I can't distinguish between the two, but whatever. It's doing cardio, it's the weightlifting, it's doing a bunch of things. For someone who's out there listening, who maybe doesn't have access to a CrossFit gym that's close to them, or the timing doesn't work, or for whatever reason they can't get to a gym, but they want to do some mix of like cardio, some mix of strength training. How would you go about? Obviously, there's a lot of variables here, but in general, how would you go about advising this person to mix their cardio training with their weightlifting, with their mobility training, with all of the things that they need to become fit?
For me, strength is priority. I feel like population as a whole, we'd be a whole lot better off with more strength. So my programming is always biased towards strength training. It also takes far longer to build strength than it does to build an aerobic machine. So if you're going to invest time in getting yourself fitter and healthier, investing that time early on in strength training is going to be much more rewarding than some of that longer endurance training. But it really does depend on the clients. There's a lot of variables at play, but just in general, strength training is what the priority would be. And then mix and match some conditioning stuff to, stay away from boredom. Just stay creative, mix some kettlebell swings with some running, or, a big thing with one of the things that's made CrossFit, that's made fitness enjoyable for me through CrossFit, was the variety of stuff. It's a little bit less, I want to say it's a little bit less structured than traditional strength and conditioning training. And that was very enjoyable for me in the early days, because one of the hard things with fitness early on is you do a workout and you're like, God damn, that was uncomfortable. And then you see that same workout repeat again with shorter rest time or longer duration. It's like, I already know how shitty this feels. I really don't want to do this. Earlier, when I was, maybe more new into fitness, I liked the fact that I didn't know what this was going to feel like, because it's a different combination of exercise, a different time domain. It's always a workout that you've never done before. So you kind of trick yourself into thinking, oh, this isn't going to be so bad, which kind of helped with the mental side of it. What's interesting, the longer I'm in fitness, the more I crave structure, and I want to see that progress building steadily. And so I guess kind of answer the question would be, prioritize strength training for a client, and then mix and match some stuff to variety if you're newer to fitness, or if boredom is something that kind of derails your fitness progress. And then sustainability. The thing for me in fitness is it has to be sustainable. I do not give a shit how fit somebody was in high school, and I get so tired of hearing that as a coach. Oh man, when I was your age, when I was in high school, look at you now. What happened? The only thing that matters with fitness is today, in this moment, where are you at? Nobody cares about the past. And too often people lose out on progress because the sustainability factor isn't there. And more intensity, more reps, more rounds, 3 workouts a day gets you super fit in 3 weeks, and then you don't work out again. And so kind of a further to that answer is, it has to be sustainable. So that really depends on the client. What's going to create the most sustainability for you, and what's going to get you to actually do this shit? Yeah. That makes sense. That's a bit of a tangent there.
No, that was great. I mean, I love that. There's a ton of good things you said there. I think that one thing that I always say, and I say this to many of my clients, when they start talking about well, how long will this take and what will it be at this time? And my answer is always that this is a forever game. We're going to do this for this, 4-week block or 12-week block or whatever time frame. But really, this doesn't end. What happens after you can squat 225? You try and squat 230. That's what happens. And after that, you try and squat 250. It doesn't end. Mm-hmm. And so keeping this long time frame in mind, I think it makes it real, because this is for your life. But 2, it also makes it easier to keep up with it, because it's really hard to be 100% perfect for 4 months, but it's not that big of an ask to be 80% perfect over the course of a year or 5 years, right? Yeah. And that's what really matters. We don't need perfection unless you're trying to get on the Olympia stage or go to the CrossFit Games or whatever. You don't need that stringent of dedication and organization to what you're doing. You just need to be able to do it. The other thing that I want to highlight and just kind of repeat of what you said is that it's so interesting to me the way that you said this, how early on kind of the lack of structure almost helps you convince yourself that it's not that difficult. And I think it is also true, I noticed this in myself and many others, that as you go on in this fitness journey, it's no, I can just do the same workout again and again and again and again. And I actually kind of like that I can anticipate what it's going to be like, and I can see the progression very clearly, versus doing different stuff all the time is sometimes more difficult to see the progression, because I haven't done this movement in 3 weeks. So I'm not sure how I've progressed at it. But that's super interesting. Now on the other side of running the classes is participating in classes. Again, CrossFit group fitness. So what would your advice be to someone who is going into a CrossFit gym as a participant, as a member? What should they do to get the most out of that group fitness setting when they're going in? Is there questions that they should ask? Are there certain things that they should do to kind of get the most out of the experience for themselves?
typically when you're doing CrossFit, you're not paying $35 a month for a membership. So you're paying for coaching. So if you have questions about anything, ask. Pull the coach aside, email the owner. You are getting a premium experience in fitness, and use that. Ask as many questions as you can until you understand something. If your coaches or the owner can't answer it or isn't willing to help you find an answer, it's probably a good idea to find a gym where that's the case. Because, it just making assumptions of what you should be doing or thinking that as an athlete or as a member, you should be keeping up to this person when you don't understand the context of how this works, ask questions. And the other thing specifically with CrossFit, I mean, any kind of strength and conditioning training, which ultimately CrossFit is just strength and conditioning that's put a stamp on it and created the games that once a year everybody goes to, but ultimately it's strength and conditioning. And anyone that's training in a performance environment needs, and again, if your gym isn't talking to you about the 23 hours a day you're not in the gym, if they're not talking to you about sleep, hydration, recovery, rest days, all of these things that make this thing sustainable, that actually are the glue to make it work, if those things aren't being talked about, pack your bag and move on, because it is only a matter of time until you're completely overtrained and so banged up, you're not going to be able to continue to progress. And if you're also as a 20-year-old, if you're as a 40-year-old, you're being trained the same as a 20-year-old, that's also a red flag. So my advice to somebody going in would be, or if you are a member of a CrossFit gym and you're kind of, wondering where things are at, is like, ask questions until you understand it and get good answers from your people. And then also is just like, hydrate, sleep, make sure you're eating enough fuel to recover yourself from your workouts. Because if you're not recovered from Monday's workout, you're going and banging yourself up on Tuesday with some more high intensity thing, or maybe it's a heavy weightlifting day. And then you go, didn't sleep well that night, and I should go in on Wednesday again because I'm paying all this money for a membership. And you're trying to maximize your value out of this. Your value that you're getting from this is coaching, is a coach telling you, hey, take a rest day. You got to recover. And on that rest day, meal prep, so you actually have fuel and recovery for your next day's training. And sometimes I think gym owners and coaches get it wrong and think that what we're providing people is the 1 hour the person's with us, when in reality, in that hour, we're just stirring the pot. We're just looking for a stimulus that's going to lead to an adaptation that's going to make change and results. And it's the window between stimulus and adaptation where all of the stuff happens. Rest, recovery, fuel, all of that stuff. So that's a largely overlooked area, I think, for a lot of people in fitness. They do their 20 sit-ups and look down at their stomach and wonder if it's gone. Like, no, but now you go sleep right, eat right, and hydrate, it'll be smaller.
Yeah. Man, that's phenomenal. There's a video, I don't know if you've seen this. I think it's called 23 hours or 23 and a half hours. And it was exactly like this. And I remember seeing it in university. This was, or maybe even in high school 10 years ago. And it was just talking about all this. Like, yeah, great that you work out, but what about the rest of your day? And this is where all of the magic happens. Like, you can't burn enough calories in a workout, despite what your Apple Watch says, that to really move the needle that much, if the rest of the stuff that you're doing doesn't line up. And like, it's not that cool. And you can't, there's no group fitness equivalent, community equivalent of like meal prepping. Like, you have to like take ownership.
Hell yeah.
If we can think about that, if anyone has any ideas, let us know. But like, if there was, that would be like cool, I guess. But like, at some point you got to do this on your own. Like, you have to take ownership of this stuff and be like, okay, I am going to go to bed at 10 p.m. I'm not going to stay up and scroll on my phone until 1 a.m. just for no reason. Like, I'm going to get to bed early. I'm going to make sure that I drink my water. I'm going to make sure that I eat my food, the correct foods, and not just get through the drive-thru in McDonald's and whatever. Like, you have to just take ownership of this stuff and then use that community to help keep you accountable. That like, yes, you are doing this stuff. Like, oh, you're dragging your ass today. Like, what happened? Oh, I didn't sleep good last night. Okay, get back at it tomorrow. But you have to take ownership. You can't. There's no other way around it. You can't outsource that.
And change is so slow. And I wish people understood that just because something's moving slowly doesn't mean it's not changing. And thank God our bodies change slow, because on the other side of that, if they didn't change slow, the night when you decide you're going to muck back an entire box of Oreo cookies, if the negative impact was that fast as well, you'd be dead.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that there's slow change is actually what keeps us alive, and harnessing that slow change over time creates a tremendous amount of change. But Just because something isn't happening as quick as you think it should, thank your biology for that.
Amazing. Now, one thing on this change, and you and I were discussing this kind of before we started recording, is that the body composition changes and you know, building some muscle and losing a little bit of body fat and start to see your abs and all that stuff. Like that stuff is like super cool. Obviously it gets people in the door. It's the surface level stuff, but it's not really the stuff that keeps people there, right? It happens slowly. We can see a little bit of it happen quickly, but other stuff does happen faster. Like getting a little bit more energy, starting to just feel more confident. And these are the things that really keep people around for a long time. And the things that I think us good coaches and group us in there is that this is what we're trying to preach. Like, yeah, we can get you a 6-pack. Like, that's not that hard. If you just eat little enough for a long enough time, like it's there. Like, that's it. That's all you got to do. Yeah. Right. But it's all the other stuff. Like that is the stuff that's so important. And so getting people to understand that, but it's harder to see. So what are some ways that you do it in the gym or with yourself or with clients that you help people start to notice these less tangible improvements in their life? Because sometimes it's hard to actually notice that it's happening for yourself.
That comes down to experience as a coach and asking the right questions. Someone, grabs their belly fat, says, I don't know if this is working. And then you just ask them like, oh yeah, how's life been otherwise? Oh, it's been good. Or, like, oh, how are you sleeping? Actually, I was sleeping really good. Like, yeah. Like, oh, tell me about that. And then you start finding the things change faster and highlighting that. And then you can shed the light on, okay, well, you realize what time of the day does your body actually build muscle? Is it while you're back squatting? No, it's while you're sleeping. So the fact that your sleep has improved is actually more valuable for your life than what the back squat is. And you ask the right questions and you point the client towards the things that are changing that aren't as obvious. And I feel like those are the things that help people see, this thing is moving. And if someone could have just told me when I first started fitness that one day I'm going to squat 450 pounds and just like definitively told me this is going to happen, and I had that self-belief from the beginning, would have taken all the guess out of it and wondering, am I getting fitter? Is this going to happen? Because you just know that's going to happen. And because you forget in the moment what you've all achieved by looking back until you look back on something. And I'm currently working through a squat program. I want to squat 405 pounds for 5 sets of 5. And I still remember the first day I squatted 400 pounds and like, I couldn't believe it happened. And I'll fast forward another like probably 7 years from then is like going for 25 total reps at 405, hopefully next week. Like that shit is insane. But the progress is so damn slow in the moment that it's so easy to lose track of that. And as a coach, like our job is just progress spotters. You see those little things that is moving in the right direction. And if you aren't highlighting the shit out of that and celebrating that with your clients, you're missing out. If you're waiting for them to, until they squat 450 or whatever the goal is, if you're waiting for that to be the thing you celebrate, you're missing all the little things that actually lead to that happening, because we know we're in this long enough. We know that that end thing will actually happen if all these little things are happening along the way. And that's the exhausting part about being a coach, is having those conversations with individuals over and over again and showing them, yes, this is working. Be patient, follow this. How's this feeling? And it's just, it takes a lot of work as a coach to spot those things and celebrate the hell out of them. And that's one of the big things with fitness, group fitness, probably more than kind of in-person online, is being able to celebrate the making sure you're celebrating the things that you value as a coach. So I don't really care how much weight somebody squats. I care how often they're working out and how well they're sleeping and those other things. So instead of just like cheering super loud for the person that just hit their 500-pound back squat, somebody in the corner of the gym has maybe just hit their 10th workout and they got that in over the course of 2.5 weeks. And that's the shit that's worth celebrating, and making sure that you don't lose out on the stuff that actually matters for progress versus just the end destination.
Yeah, the end destination is, it's nice to celebrate. I think we should celebrate those wins
Absolutely.
As well. But like the process is what matters. Because if you hit those 10 workouts in the 2.5 weeks when you're scheduled for that, well, then that end thing, whatever that squat is, bench press, whatever it is, it's going to come. It's going to come, and it just takes some amount of time. We have to get used to like zooming out a little bit, and it's also difficult to remember where we came from sometimes, because each week to week, like the progress is like
really good point.
Not that much, right? this is why I'm so big on people keeping a logbook or like just a record of your training. Like the things that you're doing now, used to be like out of the realm of possibility. Yeah. Right? If you can squat 200 pounds now, like there was a time where you couldn't even do a bodyweight squat properly. And so you're upset because like, oh, it's only a 200. Like I haven't hit 225 yet. Okay. But do you like, look at how far you've come, and you have to have that thing to like having a record of that will help you to remember and celebrate. Oh yes, I've been doing all this time. I've been consistent with my workouts, and that's how I got here. So if I just keep doing that, then I'll continue to go forward from here. But not having that record, like our memory is short. Our memory is short a little bit. And so it's hard to always remember like, okay, if I just keep doing this, like, what's going to happen. And because the wins become smaller and farther between, like to get from, 315 to 325 is more difficult than it is to get from, 50 to 65. Like that is it's a way bigger, it's a more difficult to jump. But again, knowing that you're following the process and doing the right things is going to help you be like, okay, we're doing things and we're getting there. And it's also a race to nowhere, because what happens after you get to 325, you just want to get 330. Like you never win this game. Yeah.
And I think just like you said there, as coaches, like that is the job, is like, yes, encourage somebody to keep a logbook, but people are we're the biggest assholes to ourselves. We're awful to ourselves, and people are terrible. Even with a logbook, sometimes they're terrible at flipping back 10 pages and seeing where they were. And as a coach, like you think you get into this, I'm gonna learn how to make bigger biceps and understand kinesiology and do all this different stuff. And in reality, that's not what this is. Like it's helping people spot their progress, keep them on the course, and it's just like it literally is just probably one of the most intense forms of customer service.
The nuts and bolts of fitness are very simple. Like anyone with half a brain can like pick it up. Like sure, there are like some very in-depth physiological processes that are happening, and the human biology and is very complicated. But like how practical is all that stuff to know? Like I think it's nice to know. Like I like to read about it and nerd out about it, and was formally educated on it and all that stuff. But it's like I don't use that on a day-to-day basis. So it's like, well, how did Miss Jones sleep last night? Like there's no textbook on that. Like, like that doesn't matter. So you need to. So the nuts and bolts of it are very simple, but the personal part, the human part is a difficult part. And for someone who doesn't have a trainer, isn't part of a gym or like a community that you're just kind of doing this on your own, like you have to find that way to be good to yourself and kind of look at yourself from like this third party, like a bird's eye view. And that's one of the other reasons why I'm a fan of like the logbook, because it allows you to like look at yourself on a piece of paper type of thing rather than just like thinking about what you've done. Yeah. It makes it a little bit more objective. But yeah, I mean the nuts and bolts of fitness, it's like it's very simple. It's almost like so simple. I wish it was more difficult because it would make what we do like a little bit more like special and tangible and obvious to other people. Because I'm sure you get this pushback as a gym owner. It's like, well, I gotta pay you all this money. Like I could just do this myself. And it's like, well, yeah, but you're not. So like that's why you're here, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you're not paying a coach for you're paying a coach for knowledge, but you're paying mostly for structure and accountability. Yeah. And something else that you said that's been sticking with me for like a month since we hung out was that fitness is like the only business where you go and pay someone and then you have to do all the work. Like, your example I think was like, imagine you went to a mechanic and you paid them and then you had to fix your own car. Like there's no other thing where in fitness, like here, I'm going to give you money, but then I'm also going to do all the work. And that's what makes it so difficult. But there's no other way to do it. Like if we could work out for our clients and eat for our clients, I would easily do that. And it would be the easiest business ever.
And the other piece of that too is like, we're working against the natural tendency of a human. A human wants to relax, wants to rest, wants to take it easy. And again, if that's your nature, you're going to stay alive longer because you're not going to run right into the face of a lion for a fight. You naturally are looking for comfort and safety. Every vehicle that comes out every year has more options on it. And, the car can now drive itself because it's just too difficult and too much of an inconvenience to drive your own car you're sitting in, to make life easier and easier and easier. And unfortunately, with fitness, like there's no barbell that's now super easy to hold that actually lifts itself. Look at this back squat opportunity. You can squat 400 pounds, but it feels like 80. Like It doesn't exist. It's literally choosing the hardest path possible and celebrating that. And there's something about it that is so unbelievably rewarding. But there's also just like, understanding and having your people understand when you're working with them that like, why is this so hard? Well, this is why it's so hard. Like, this is against everything in our human nature.
And the reason, or because it's hard is why it works.
Yeah.
If someone did invent a barbell that somehow was like anti-gravity, that 400 pounds felt like 80 pounds, it's like, great, but it won't help you. Like, you're still not going to be strong. Like, you're still only squatting 80 pounds. So like, what is that? Like, sure, you might as well just put like fake plates on, and you could take a video and you can squat 700 pounds if you want. It looks like on a video.
I'd like to borrow some for my upcoming squat set. If you got some, just I'll pick them up.
Amazon Prime Day. I'm sure they're available. I've never seen them, but they'd be pretty flimsy. I feel like if you held them, it would probably feel really weird because it'd be like so much weight. It would just be a little bit of a like a psychological like weird thing. There's so many like plates on the bar, and then you pick it up and it's like 2 pounds. But I mean, a number of people have been caught using those, so I don't know like who they think they're. I mean, they think they're fooling a lot of people, but
yeah.
Like, how could you care that much for a video? It's not really the point. Like, if someone is hiring you because you can squat 700 pounds instead of like a real squat of 400 pounds, like, I don't know who you think you're fooling. But
that's the crazy thing with the online fitness coach thing, or this like personality people are trying to create with some of the content is like, who the hell are you trying to trick or promote with this? The people that have money to buy the programs you want to offer. Don't like they would think a 225 pounder or 135 pound squat's impressive. Like, putting fake plates on to get to God knows what.
There was a guy who I trained a while ago. I think I've told the story in the podcast a while ago, but this was several years ago that I trained him, and he was like brand new to fitness. He was an in-person client, brand new to fitness, never worked out before, never played sports. He was in his 40s, small, slim guy. Anyways, we get going, and after his whatever number of sessions was up, we talked about renewing and buying more sessions in the gym that I was working at. And he goes to me, and the week before this, rather, we just started squatting with the barbell, maybe like 10 pounds on each side, so whatever, not like a ton of weight, right? And in this kind of renewal, sales discussion, he says to me, "Well, this is like as strong as I've ever been in my whole life. Like, what do we do now? Like, where do we go from here?" And it took me a second. And this is also like relatively early in my training career. It took me a second to like think about it, because I'm like, man, this guy like barely scratched the surface. Like, this is not like, you wouldn't post this as like a PR, like, look at me, squatted 55 pounds. Like, this is not like, crazy. But for him, it is like as strong as he's ever been, like never been that strong before. And so you're right that like, putting a thing on Instagram of you squatting 700 pounds, it might probably turning more people away than it is like, it's cool for like other fitness people. Like the joke is like, when you get, as a guy, you get really big, you finally get jacked, like you're only going to impress other dudes. Like girls are not, girls are not going to be like excited about that,
Exactly.
Like one of the funnest things in the gym is like when the big guy at the gym, we'll start to recognize you, and you get the big dog and you get the fist pump from him, but it's like
the old head nod, you're like, oh shit, I made it, I'm in the club.
Yeah, you're one of the boys now.
That's funny.
Now, on a very like a little bit more of a technical note, and I know I'm switching gears here a little bit quickly. In CrossFit, there's not a lot of like bicep curls. There's not a lot of like fluff kind of bodybuilding work. However, CrossFit athletes and CrossFit enthusiasts have phenomenal physiques. So, if you can you break down like why you think that is, and where these accessories have their place? Like CrossFitters are not doing bicep curls yet have great biceps. Meanwhile, there's people like yourself, even like you were saying, you sit in the mirror and do a bunch of bicep curls, and somehow you don't get big biceps. Like, what do you think is happening there, and how do you kind of like make sense of that for someone who might be like wondering about this type of thing?
Are we talking like professional CrossFit athletes that you're seeing on Instagram? And
let's talk about like a high level, like it's like the most fit person in like your in your gym type of thing.
So I mean, we'll talk about both these, but most fit person, so a lot of times with certain movements, certain like big biceps, a lot of that is, some of it's genetic. Somebody can do a bunch of pull-ups and their biceps are going to just grow at a faster pace than than their lats. And someone else with the exact same exercise, same training program, and they'll have, a bigger back and not very big arms. With the best athletes, a lot of them come from a background of strength and conditioning. backgrounds, or they played, college sports, or they have some other kind of background when they find CrossFit. So a lot of programs and, especially dudes training in their, through high school, in their 20s, through college, whatever it is, are throwing in some kind of extra accessory training for the, the sexy muscles, and then transition to CrossFit because you want to keep working out and find it enjoyable and fun to do, and naturally carry some of that with them. But there are, maybe at the CrossFit Games level, there's a lot of big, strong athletes that don't have very impressive biceps specifically. But we're just talking general body composition. Like the amount of muscle mass the guys and girls at the CrossFit Games have, it's progressive overload. It's strength training. It is nothing new and exciting. Their training program is structured in a way that strength training cycles that are more focused on that. Conditioning, their conditioning portion will have some weightlifting component in it. Their nutrition is dialed into the point where they, especially modern CrossFit, where people are taking it a lot more seriously. They're burning a shitload of calories, but at the same time, they're eating an enormous amount of food. Their lives are boring as hell. They train, have a nap, train, eat, sleep, train. Like it's literally just what they do. And with that recipe, there's no way body composition doesn't drastically improve. On the other side of that, like I think a lot of people that do CrossFit, and you kind of look at them and they say they do CrossFit, like, hey, why don't you look like, you're fitter, is you beat your body into the ground and you don't focus on, we talked before, is the other 23 hours. Like you're choosing one of the most intense fitness programs that will lead to a level of fitness that is far surpasses anything your daily life is going to require of you. So you crush your soul in a workout, beat your ass down to some strength training, and then you're not prioritizing. Like if you're putting, a 9 out of 10 effort level into your training, and you're putting like a 3 out of 10 effort level into your recovery piece of it, like body composition doesn't really change. So CrossFit is highly effective, and if you do it and you do it well, and you take enough rest time and you put the right amount of fuel in there, there's no way your physique doesn't, positively improve. And the craziest thing with CrossFit is you get somebody that can squat 400 plus pounds, but can still bust ass on a 5-kilometer run. I think it was this past year at the CrossFit Games, like the times these athletes were putting up for their 5-kilometer runs, insane. Because you look at somebody that muscled up and think, how is it possible? And I don't know that it's like necessarily just a CrossFit specific thing. I was talking to a client that was doing, I forget if his was the half marathon or if he was a half iron. I forget which one he just did, but I was like, we were just talking about like the physiques of the athletes doing this. And he was just saying how much has changed over the last bunch of years, that it's no longer just a sport of like people that are naturally shorter and skinnier that are doing these events. It's just getting, there's more people, there's more well-muscled people doing these types of sports. And I think it just comes down to like, people are finding good coaches, or understanding the nutrition requirements to support their needs. Yeah, I don't know if that answers your question or not, but
yeah, no, it definitely does. And kind of the direction I was wanting to go with this is that there's a lot of talk now about like optimal exercises, and you need to do, XYZ thing to have a big back, and you need to do XYZ thing to have good biceps or good chest or good legs or whatever. And, you walk into a CrossFit gym and you're like, oh, where's like all that equipment? Like, I don't see like a hack squat in here. I don't see a pendulum squat. I don't see the prime chest supported, lat pull down, single arm, plate loaded, different, movement arms and all this stuff. Like, I don't see any of that, but I look around like, oh, these people are like pretty jacked. Like,
yeah.
Maybe they're not bodybuilders, but like, I'm also not a bodybuilder. And like, I'd like most people looking across the gym, like, I'd like to look like that. Like, that's kind of what they're going for. And so the gist of it is like, if you just train hard and get strong, like you're going to get the body that you want.
Yeah.
If you want to become this crazy bodybuilder level or crazy, very specialized athlete for a very specific thing, then yes, you need to go and like do those things. But no one listening to this podcast, I presume, wants to do that. And like, 99.9% of people out there just like don't want to do that. And so the answer is like, find something you like, do it well, train hard, do it consistently, eat good foods, sleep, take care of yourself. And like, it's so boring to keep saying this. Like, this is episode 170, whatever. And like, we've said this every single episode, and it's like, but this is it. Like, there is no secret. Like, this is just the way it is. And if there was a different way, Kirby and I would be the first to tell you, but like, this is it. This is the way.
yeah, I mean, couldn't have said that better. It literally is just that shit on repeat. And if it's boring, add in a different training partner, try something new playlist. Like there's things you can spice up, but as soon as a trainer's coming at you with this new behind the neck wing press, some bullshit, like, yeah, it's this stuff. I mean, you hate to sound like someone who's not open to innovation. And if there's better ways to do things, I constantly want to be trying different things. But you also, if it doesn't pass the bullshit test of looking at it and being like, there's no way that person selling this shake weight has an arm like that from this freaking shape weight. Like that's, you gotta, if it doesn't pass that test, you're wasting your time. And it's just, there isn't an easier way to make it happen.
One like kind of just thought test that I have for all of those kind of things is 2-part question. One, is this person who is claiming to come up with this thing the smartest person that ever existed? And 2, if they are, why isn't everybody doing this? And like the answer to those questions is usually going to be no to both of them. And it's like, oh yeah, because it's like not actually like better or a real thing. And like sometimes it might be equally as good, but it's like you may have to buy a $10,000 piece of equipment to get that done. And like, is that worth it? Like probably not, right?
Yeah. And like it just like, it comes down to, what do you enjoy doing? What's the best exercise is the exercise you're going to do. When is the best time to do it? 10 years ago. When's the second best time to do it? Like today. And you apply that to how, you're coaching people, or if, people listen to this podcast are healthy and have family members, they want to try and get healthier. Stop trying to sell them on the thing that you do because you love it. If they've tried it and don't like it, there's so many opportunities and things in fitness, and it may look a bit different than what you do, but if they're doing it regularly and enjoying it, like, let's stop fighting about the shit that doesn't matter. The shit that matters is the people that are, not finding motivation to exercise, or are, stuck on a couch and just not like with lacking, motivation and drive to do it. That's the people we should be working to be like, hey, let me help you find a solution to get a little bit better today, not force feeding whatever program you're into, CrossFit, bodybuilding, even your nutrition, if it's keto or this or that. Quit forcing shit on people, because at the end of the day, it's all the same shit. Let's move regularly. If you want to lose weight, live in a caloric deficit, keep yourself moving. Like it's all the same stuff, and you can package it in paleo, keto, F45, Orange Theory, CrossFit, bodybuilding. It's do what you enjoy and do it often enough to make the change, and prioritize the shit out of the time in between your workouts if you actually want to see progress. Extremely,
extremely well said. I mean, I think it's fun to poke fun at the different factions of fitness and nutrition, but at the end of the day, you're right. It's like, obviously, I don't actually care if you're vegan and love Zumba. Like, I'd rather you do that than...
Why do you take the most extreme examples?
Because it just makes because this is for social media, man. You got to be extreme.
I fully understand. Yes.
No, but like whatever, because that just to paint the picture, right? If you're a vegan absolutely. Zumba lover, like great. Like I personally wouldn't do that and wouldn't enjoy that, and I probably wouldn't advise someone to do that. But also, like, I'd way rather you do that than like sit on the couch and eat potato chips and smoke cigarettes and drink whiskey every night. Like that's vegan Zumba is way better than that. So yes, it's fun to like poke fun, but like at the end of the day, like as long as we're all moving and like taking care of ourselves, like that's a thing that matters. Like fitness is new, and we keep packaging it in new ways and new styles of workouts and new pieces of equipment and whatever. But like this is the thing that's oldest. It's older than anything. It's just taking care of our body. And like, what did people do millions of years ago when humans started to come about? Is they had to take care of their body. They had to find a way to like, throw a spear, and that's like, that could be fitness or a sport or a performance, if you will. And like find if this food, they weren't concerned about their body composition, but they were concerned about survival. So if I eat this berry, I die. And if I eat this berry, I feel good. Like, okay, well, that's figuring out nutrition. Like we've been doing this since forever, figuring out how to like make the human vehicle better. And this is just the latest thing, and we're just up against the realities of the current modern world that are kind of working against us. So it's maybe harder now than ever to just stay in decent shape, but we have more information and more access to more things than ever before to make it a little bit easier.
Absolutely,
man. Well, this has been good. Is there anything that you want to talk about today that we haven't gotten to?
No, I mean, covered a lot of stuff here today. This was awesome. Main thing is, if anyone's listened to this and maybe new to their fitness journey and they're not sure they're enjoying it, and if they're going to stick with it, I fully relate to you. I was there 10 years ago. And yeah, just stay the course. If what you're doing isn't enjoyable, find something that, that's enjoyable and you actually look forward to going to and being part of, whatever that looks like. Like, just, stay hungry. And the biggest impact fitness has had on me has not been, body composition or performance. Those things have changed a lot, but it's my outlook on life, my perspective, all the stuff that, maybe can't be measured to the same degree. And I wouldn't change it for anything.
Great message, man. Thank you so much for sharing and for being here, taking the time out of your day to speak with us. It means a lot to me. So I appreciate Kirby.
Awesome. Thank you.
Can you just rattle off the contact info for the gym and where people can get in touch? I'll put it in the show notes, but let them know here.
Absolutely. So the name of the gym is CrossFit Elmira. You can check us out on Instagram at that name, at CrossFit Elmira. We post some stuff there regularly. My personal Instagram is quite underutilized, so that'll be a very, very boring page to land on at this point. But there's email there if you want to reach out, have any other questions, want to engage further. I would be happy to connect with you. And the email address is admin@crossfitelmira.ca. And feel free to reach out and we can chat.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Kirby. CrossFit Elmira, I'll put the handle on the website in the show notes. If you're in the Elmira area or passing through in southern Ontario, which is Elmira is like a little bit west of Toronto, if just for people who are not or from around here, definitely go in and check them out for a workout if you're passing through for any reason. Kirby, thank you so much again. I appreciate you, man. And I appreciate everyone for listening. So thank you guys. Make sure you're following us. Make sure you go outside, you work out, you do all the good things, and really take to heart all the things we listened or that we mentioned here. And share this with a friend. Subscribe to the podcast. All of that good stuff. That's that. I appreciate you. Go outside. Be a good person. See you next time.